Hey guys, today I want to talk about the reason why I came over here. And a lot of you guys might be surprised, but I also want to tell what's behind all that and why I wanted to come here to the Philippines. But before I start, I want to talk about something because it's kind of important. The other day we were talking about the World War III thing that was going around amongst expats, and I was talking on there about Joe Biden trying to sit down without a chair. That was passed around on some mainstream news sites, and I happened to be one of the people that saw it, and actually it was a fake. Okay, I just want to put that out there. But I just want to state this. I still think he looked kind of weak. And also, a lot of guys are trying to paint my narrative for me by saying that, oh, you're pro-MAGA, Steve, or you're this or you're that. And I've had other people say that I'm also a liberal. I'm actually a moderate, and I don't like any of the candidates right now. I'm going to vote a certain way because I believe it's probably the best way to vote right now. And how I vote is my vote. I don't hate people because they vote one way or the other. I believe everybody has the freedom to do that. But I noticed I had a few people unsubscribe me, and it was probably like about 8 or 10 people that unsubscribed me. A lot of them were saying, Steve, you're pro-MAGA. I knew it all the time. I unsubscribed. If you're going to unsubscribe from me because of the way people vote, and I never said who I was going to vote for, by the way. I have a strong inclination to vote a certain way. If there was other people running, I would vote for them over these two jabronis that are in there right now. Unfortunately, we only have 3 choices, and one of them is the third party, which is not any better. So you gotta kind of, it's like picking one of the 3 stooges to run the United States, unfortunately. And I'll just leave it at that. I talked about the things that I talked about because I thought it was important what I was stating. A lot of people actually subscribed also because of what I wrote on there, and the stuff that I was talking about was actually somebody else talking. I read it from an article, and before I started, I mentioned about getting triggered. Please don't get triggered. I'm just the messenger. And yet it triggered a lot of people. And if a lot of people are getting very, very touchy in the United States, and it's getting very sad. It's very hard to vlog in today's world because of that. But anyway, I want to apologize because of what I stated about that video, but that did go through some mainstream news sites as real, okay? And they retracted it later on and wrote a retraction later on. And I just want to state that, okay? So it could have been anybody that fell for that, all right? And we all have fallen for things like this before in the past with all kinds of other things like the boy in the balloon and all this stuff, I mean, you guys, I'm sure you remember that one. But anyway, I want to talk about why I came to the Philippines, okay? A long time ago, I came here to the Philippines, and I married a Filipina, and we had a kid, my daughter, and we ended up breaking up later on. And I didn't think I was going to give the Philippines another chance. And after that, I just kind of got that out of my mind. I threw it out of my mind. I says, I'll never go back to that place again. And then I started going to Belize, and I love Belize. Belize has a little bit of an underbelly there. There's a lot of things you don't see there unless you're out at night or unless you hang around with the locals. You don't see that underbelly. And there's a lot of drugs. There's a lot of problematic criminal activities going on in places where you wouldn't think they were going on. But when it's dark and there's nobody outside on the streets, there's a lot of things going on out in the streets. Drug deals, things like that in Belize. And I didn't like it, and that was one of the problems. Another thing was I wasn't planning on leaving the United States till my dad passed away. I had always had it in my mind that I was going to go someplace. And when my dad was alive, I was always talking about Belize. Everything was Belize. I really loved Belize. But when my father passed away, I got kind of turned off by Belize a little bit by a few things that had happened there. And I still love Belize, don't get me wrong. it's very expensive to live there now. It's akin to living in the United States. If you're going to live, their rents down there are exceptionally high price for what you get. For a shack on some of these islands, they're charging $1,000 a month or more for a shack. In some places, as much as $1,400 to $1,500 a month for a shack. A place that's not even fit for living in, really. And that stuff kind of turned me off. And then what happened was I started thinking about the Philippines again. And it wasn't about the girl thing. A lot of people think, oh, Steve came here because of a woman. I did start talking to a woman and before I came here. And then we ended up breaking up later on, just about a year ago now. And I'll say this, that I came here more because of the costs. I came here because it was affordable. And at the time, I wasn't going to be collecting all my pensions because I couldn't collect my Social Security until I'm 62. I'm coming up on 62 soon. I have the YouTube channel, and I have a couple of other things that have worked, that are pensions and stuff like that. And that's one of the reasons why I came here was the cheapness and the costs of all the items here, and especially the rents. When I heard that the rents were like $80 for a one-bedroom apartment, a good-sized apartment, I was like, that's for me. I had thought about going on the road and doing the van life thing and possibly stop during the winter and work somewhere. And then I said, you know what? I don't know if I really want to do the van life thing because, again, affordability. Living in a van is not really that cheap with gas prices today. It's like you get up and you travel a few hundred miles, you stop for maybe 5 days or in some cases 2 weeks. Some of the places up in Canada and Alaska, you can camp there for 14 days. Some places you can stay for 3 months or more in the United States, but they really don't have that much to offer there. And I didn't know if I wanted to live in something that can break down on the side of the road, and if it breaks down, where are you going to be sleeping? You have to pay a hotel until the thing is fixed. If it gets in a bad accident, you got to buy a vehicle right away almost. This was part of the problem of trying to figure out where to go. I was single at the time, and I was saying, maybe I'll give the Philippines a second chance. And when I come over here, I was pleasantly surprised by the costs and the fact that I could live a lot better over here. I mean, even on $2,000 to $3,000, you could live very well over here compared to back in the U.S. because costs were already starting to go up. But those are not the only reasons why I wanted to leave the U.S. Part of the reasons were the people were so triggered off of different things, and it wasn't whether you were. It was didn't matter. It was political triggeredness. Anything that people don't like you saying or something like that, they were triggered by, especially up in Massachusetts. It's very difficult to work. I had one lady actually go after me verbally and try to destroy me at work in a school system. She was going crazy on me. She didn't like who I was. She didn't even, I never even talked to her about this, but she goes, I can tell by looking at you who you're going to vote for. And I'm like, I says, I don't talk politics at work. I'm sorry. And she goes, that's another reason. I know for sure. And I did not like that. I didn't like that type of attitude that the people had in Massachusetts. Not even knowing, who I was going to vote for, or if I was even voting for that matter. And sometimes I would see other people, when you said certain things, just something that they could take something out of it, extrapolate something out of it, but you didn't mean it that way, automatically they hated you. And I was really getting kind of sick and tired of that attitude. And I hear this from a lot of the guys that are coming here now telling me the same exact thing. And I had seen that probably more than 10 or 15 years before, maybe even 20 years before, I started seeing that building up. And I told a friend of mine about it. I says, you know what, in 10 or 15 or 20 years, we're barely going to even be able to talk here because of this PC stuff. And it was just when the PC stuff was starting to happen. And I noticed that it was getting so crazy that both sides couldn't even hold a conversation without getting triggered and going at each other's throat. And I'm not trying to make this a political thing. I'm just telling the real facts here of why I came here, okay? And I do see a lot of people coming here now for the same reason as me, who are on both sides. And I do see a lot of the expats over here becoming like back home. Not all of them, some of them. I see people getting triggered. We've had a few guys get triggered here. They usually make up and become friends and friendly again afterwards or whatever. They just decide to stay off that subject because it's for the best. And I tell people here, there's no reason for us to even talk about that stuff here. If you're going to vote from here, vote from here. Just don't tell anybody. I would just keep quiet about it. You know, I am going to vote who I vote for. You know, I tell people, but, you know, and I'm not trying to say I like them. I don't like either one. I'm a moderate, you know, but I just felt like back home, I couldn't be Steve, you know, I couldn't be. And I kind of see that a little bit over here popping up now, that you can't be who you are unless you're this or you're that, or I'm not going to watch you, I'm not going to subscribe to you, I'm not going to watch your videos anymore. And I think we all need to step back a little bit and say, hey, why can't we all just get along and love each other and just be friends, you know? And that's what I tried to form over here as a group. And actually our group is really good like that, because a lot of people don't talk about that, which is really, really good. And it's appreciated by the people that are in the group. Sometimes people talk about it on the side. They know the other person votes this way by the way they're talking or what have you. And some people extrapolate things, though, still just like back home. And when I see stuff like that, it's like, dude, slow down. Take a step back. Stop right there, because you got the wrong info and you're extrapolating something from something else that has nothing to do with what you're thinking in your head. And I still see that today over here, you know, and I see it not very often, but often enough that it concerns me over here that, you know, all the crap that's going on back home in the United States, and it's not just in the United States, it's in Canada, it's in the UK, it's in Australia, it's all over the place. Whether you're left, whether you're right, it doesn't matter. These are the reasons why I wanted to come over here, to get away from that. And I do notice with my Filipino friends, I don't have to worry about that. And it's kind of great having Filipino friends that are like that. But it's also great having American friends too that are not like that and don't like to talk politics. Because I hate talking politics now. I used to love talking politics. I used to love talking about it amongst friends, amongst relatives, with my dad. You know, when my dad passed away, I lost my confidant, my best friend. My father was my best friend. So when I lost him, I didn't feel at home anymore back there. I had seen a lot of things with some of my relatives and stuff. I didn't like the way things were going. I didn't like the way the younger generation in my family, what they were becoming and the way they were acting. And they weren't as close to family as the older generation was. In fact, they didn't even give a damn, really, a lot of them, about get-togethers or going places or meeting ups. In fact, they would get very vocal with you and speak out to adults like we were the children. And I could see that in the younger generation, in their 20s and even 30s and stuff. And I didn't like that. It was very disrespectful. I saw people getting disrespectful with my dad, my pop, and his grandchildren. And doing things that they shouldn't do to him. I just saw a lot of things I did not like. And all that is what kind of pushed me this way. And one of the things I notice is most of the people coming over here today are leaving because of the stuff. And they always mention the woke thing. I'm just the messenger. Okay? They always mention that. They mention the politics, the political divide. And I'm talking, we have both sides. Both complain. One about the other side and the other side about the other side. So it's we don't see as many of one side as we do the other. Because most military people tend to be more conservative. And we are talking politics today because I'm trying to explain my feelings on why I came here. But that's what drives these other people over here too. It's scary. It's inappropriate in so many different levels, because used to be, and I've mentioned this before, we could reach across the aisles and work with each other during the Reagan years. Whether you hate Reagan or not, I don't care. You know, I'm just stating that at least he reached across the aisle. A lot of Democrats voted for him because of that. A lot of Republicans voted for him because of that. He did a lot of things that kind of surprised me, and yet people still hate him. Some people love him. Some people are in the middle about him or what have you. I'm just talking about the fact that he reached across the aisle, because I know people get triggered. So, oh, Reagan, he said Reagan. I can't believe he said Reagan. It's kind of the way we live today, man. You cannot speak about certain people. You cannot speak about this or that. That's what's driving the people over here to the Philippines right now. It's just the God's honest truth. It's the God's honest truth. If we don't get past that in the next 20 years, what the hell have we become? You know, we have to become better at compromise and working with each other, because it's driving people out of the country. And to me, I think those are the best people that we're driving out. I know the younger generation one time said, we can't wait till, they said there was statements coming out from different people about the older generation. Why don't they just die off? It'd be better off if they died off. That way we can have what we want and do what we want. It's a spoiled generation coming up. I mean, I can't imagine these people working in an elderly nursing home or something like that, watching us. And I didn't want that to happen either. I didn't want to show up in a nursing home when I get older and have these people back home, these kids watching over me if I ever had to go into a nursing home. God forbid, you know. But these are the reasons why many others are coming over here too. When I've told this story to people, a lot of people have said, Steve, that's exactly the reason why I left. All those reasons plus more. You know, and I says, I know. One of the things that I liked the best, though, when I got here, was I had some freedoms over here and peace. Some of it was time. And a lot of times I don't have much time nowadays because of the channel and helping people with the SRVs. But it was time. And it gave me time now to start discovering myself and who I am. Because for the past 60 years, or 55 years, because I come over here at 55, I couldn't really figure out who I was 100%. I could a little. I knew I wanted certain freedoms. I had lived in the mountains for a while, and I worked a 3-day, 4-day schedule. It was really, really nice because on my time off, I had either 3 days or 4 days up in the mountains at my home, and I lived at my dad's house during the week, and I loved it. I was thinking about living up there, but it was too far away. The schedule was good, but it was a long ride. I had to drive up to Upper New Hampshire. It was about, 150, 175 miles or something like that. It was a long ride, and it was in Berlin, New Hampshire, and it was a log cabin way up in the woods. My nearest neighbor was about a mile away. And I had to chop wood. I had no electricity. I had an outhouse, but I loved it. And I was thinking about, in the future, maybe retiring like that, but that gets old. You know, there's no people around. You just have your dog. You know, I wanted to have something better, possibly without the snow. I had a Christmas tree farm on the same property. It's 23 acres. And I got a lot of good memories up there. But I never still got to fully discover who Steve is until I come over here. And I kind of found myself here, you know, and who I want to be, what I want to be. And I can have more control over that over here than I did back home, because when you're working, they control who you are. They control the narrative. And the people around you control the narrative too. And they take that narrative and they run with it. And they try to make people think you're this way or that way or whatever. Americans can be tough. In the workplace, they can be very tough. And I'm not putting down Americans just to put them down. I'm stating my truth. Okay, from what I saw. I don't hate Americans. I just don't like the way that they function. And that goes for a lot of Westerns. I see guys from the UK and Australia coming over here. They're saying the same thing I'm saying. They get tired of their country, the way things are going. But I did notice that there's this thing about controlling people's narrative. And YouTube is really bad for that too. A lot of the trolls out there try to control your narrative. They try to put out false news on you. They try to say this or that about you. I've got people out there that say it. I really don't care who they are. You know, it doesn't really matter. My narrative is my narrative. I see a lot of people writing, oh, Steve, you said this here. Now I know everything about you. I'm unsubscribing. And power to you if that's what, you know, if that's your thing and you think a certain way. But for me, the freedoms that I have here now are so much greater than the freedoms I had back in the US. I mean, I have time to play the guitar, the cigar box guitar, harmonica. I like collecting things and collect antique things to preserve that history. Both coins I like, baseball cards, like the card up on the wall here. I mean, it's a fake Honus Wagner up here that I got. And, I like preserving things, rejuvenating things. I like fixing things. The harmonicas gives me something to fix, sanitize, repair. I like to find the old original tins and boxes that the harmonicas come in. I like collecting those. It's a fun thing to do for me. That I get to do now. I get to have that time. I get to have that freedom to do those things whenever I want. If I want to skip a day vlogging or something, I'll skip a day vlogging. You know, if I want to get up and travel to Manila or travel to Sikihor or wherever I want to go, I can go whenever I want to go. In fact, pretty soon we're going to be doing some traveling, and we're going to show that on here too. But over here, I have freedoms to do things. I mean, even though I have a lot of issues, health issues and stuff, I'm lucky in that it's mostly in the morning, and in the afternoon I can still function. And if I was handicapped 100% of the time, I don't think I'd want to live here. I think I'd probably want to live someplace else. I'm not sure where. I don't think I would want to be in the United States, or maybe it would be here. I'm not quite sure. Philippines, you can get a lot of good care here. There's a lot of good nurses here. That is a plus, but I'm not sure this is the place, or maybe the island where I would want to be. If I was, or maybe the city. Maybe I'd want to be more in the city or what have you. I'm not quite sure. You know, and things can always change in that direction too. But I think for right now, that I'm in the place that I really, really want to be, in a place that I love the most. And when people talk to me, this place is not always the right place for everybody. Some people come here and they leave within 3 months. They don't like it. They don't like the poverty. They don't like the water. They don't like the people. Sometimes they don't like. They have a problem with a girlfriend or something. They up and leave. They don't like the infrastructure here. They don't like the fact that it's harder to get American foods here. And that's something we all have to work at when you get here. You can live a pretty normal American life or Western life, just as you can back home if you know what you're doing and you do put the homework and the time in, and the money. And that's one of the reasons why I tell people, because to come over here, you'd need to have health insurance too. And even health insurance is way cheaper than back home, even through my job. So that's one of the big saving graces over here. That, rent, food's cheaper and higher at the same time, depending where you go and what you buy. If I go to the wet market, I can get it fairly cheap. If I get it in the supermarket, I got to pay more. If I go to S&R, I'm going to pay an arm and a leg, but I'm getting what I want. For a box of ring dings, that if I buy them for the kids here, it's a little over $10. You know, it's a little expensive. It's about $10. And some things like steaks and stuff, some of them are very reasonable over at S&R. And I got to tell you, they're very reasonable. And that's one of the things I like. I like my steaks once in a while. I can't have them as much as I used to because my creatinine levels go up. But these are the reasons I love the Philippines and chose the Philippines. One of the other things is opportunities here. Opportunities are huge here. And when people go to the United States that are not from the United States, they see opportunities that Americans don't see. Well, when Americans come to the Philippines, if you stay here long enough, a year or two, you're going to see opportunities that Filipinos don't see. And you can make some money off of those things, especially if you're on a visa where you can work, such as the SRRV or what have you. There's plenty of opportunity here. The Philippines can be the land of opportunity, just like the U.S. Is it harder here to start a business? It depends on what you're doing and all that. Vlogging can be very lucrative for some people. I've seen some people make a lot of money. I see some people make a living off of it. And some people just do it for extra money to subsidize their income or whatever. I don't need to do this. I did this originally on Facebook. Originally, I was helping people with the SRRVs on Facebook. And what happened was, Facebook took me down for whatever reason. I'll never know. They just took me off, and I think it was partially because I was helping veterans. I honestly believe that. And I started the YouTube, and the YouTube took off. And the YouTube kind of changed my life a lot, because it in some ways it's good, in some ways it's bad. And until you do it, you don't understand that, because you get a lot of haters out there, and you get a lot of people that really love your channel, and you make new friends. And the haters can be brutal out there. And the people that love your channel can be great people. And you can't meet all their needs. People, like I said, they hear a certain thing from you, they hate your guts. And in today's world, everybody is triggered by something, and it's kind of hard to get that delicate balance. And I think our channel has a really good balance compared to a lot of other channels out there. I think we have a really, really good balance. I think we're a pretty clean channel. We try to stay off the political stuff for the most part over here. And for me, every once in a while you have to talk about something. And people say, "Oh, you said you were never going to talk politics, Steve." Well, on occasion you have to, because you're reading something and it's semi-political. Like the statement from the other day when we were talking about the World War III thing that was going around amongst expats. It was an interesting article, but a lot of people got triggered by that, touched off by that, and hurt, and that's the things that, if you can't listen to something like that without getting triggered, maybe you shouldn't be watching political stuff then. You know, and at the beginning of that, I had said right from the beginning, I'm only the messenger in this thing, and you know, please don't get triggered by what I have to say. Remember, I'm just the messenger, and still people got triggered off of that. And it kind of shows you where expats are at. We're kind of brought what we have back home over here. Granted, some of those people are back home, and maybe they shouldn't come over here, because a lot of expats over here are very, very conservative. A lot of them are very conservative. I'm more of a moderate. I slant more towards the right than towards the left, but I would call myself an extremist. I call myself a moderate, because there's a lot of things that I agree with on the left, and there's much more things that I agree on the right. But I do agree some things with both parties. There are things I like about the Democrats. Social Security is one of them. I think they need to take another look at that and fix it. They're the ones that started it. Fix it. I don't like the spending on that side. The Republicans, I think they don't care about the environment as much as on the other side. And these are the problems that expats have too. They peck at each other, you know, and sometimes it comes out on vlogs, and it comes out when we're sitting at a table having dinner, barbecue amongst friends, sitting in a restaurant talking or whatever. And to me, I just wish we could all just get along and just love each other. Just put down all that stuff. Vote for whoever you want to vote for. And then when the person gets in there, let's just respect that, you know. And we can't, for some reason today, we can't respect others' choices. And it's really taking a lot away from people's lives being that way. And that's why we have so many expats over here. But I don't want to see those expats bringing that crap over here. And that's the sad part. You know, nobody's perfect. I'm not perfect. I'm not. I sometimes slip on some things, and you know, and I'm allowed to say what I want to say. People think that you're not allowed to say this stuff. You are allowed to say it. But, you know, everybody gets a little butthurt sometimes, a little bit too much, to an extreme, let's face it. And I left there to come here to get away from that very thing I'm talking about, and we've been talking about a little bit on that. But if you're planning on coming here, the freedoms over here are worth it. I think you have a little bit more freedom over here to speak. Filipinos love to hear you talk. And whatever you're talking about, they're okay with it. They don't get butthurt. And that's one thing I respect them for. And one of the greatest things that has happened in my life now is meeting my girlfriend. I've been with her for almost a year now. And I'm really glad that I met her, because this past year has been really great for me and her. And we get along really, really well. She's become my best, she's my best friend. And the greatest part about it was, before we started seeing each other, we became close friends. She's a very dear friend, not just my girlfriend. And that's, you know, hard to meet people like that. To be married to your best friend, I think, is the greatest thing you can ever have. Anyway, guys, I just wanted to put that out there, talk a little bit about that, chat about it. Anyway, guys, God bless. Take care. I hope you enjoyed today's show. And don't get triggered. God bless, guys. Take care.